Anyway, these meetings are via Zoom pursuant to state law. The public can find information on how to participate in Planning Commission meetings in our public notices. Directions on how to find the full meeting materials, applications, and staff reports on the city's website are also included in our public notices. I note that we do have 5 of the 7 members present, so we do have a quorum. Announcements, staff announcements, Brandon.
Thank you, Chair Werner. At your next June 24th special meeting, the Planning Commission will be evaluating the SOU master plan. I also wanted to let you know of upcoming City Council meetings related to Planning Commission business. On June 3rd, this occurred last Tuesday, the Council approved second reading of the climate-friendly area ordinances. They also approved first reading of the economic opportunity analysis and the vacant council seat when Doug Nauer left the council was filled by Derek Sherrill. On June 17th, the City Council will be reviewing the appeal of 231 Granite Street. They'll also be conducting second reading of the economic opportunity analysis ordinance. Moving to July 15th, the council will be reviewing the Hamilton Creek floodplain modification ordinance, and the public hearing before the City Council on the SOU master plan is scheduled for that date, as is the selection of affordable housing provider for development of the affordable housing on Beach Creek subdivision. And lastly, on August 5th, the Planning Commission's recommendations on the Grand Terrace Highway 99 multifamily development will be going to the City Council for their consideration.
Okay, great. Do we have any advisory committee liaison? Go for it, Susan.
All right. Thank you, Chair Werner. I just wanted to make everyone aware that on June 22nd, which is a Sunday, as an extension of Juneteenth celebrations in Ashland, there will be at 2 o'clock in the afternoon at Railroad Park the dedication of a very special Playwrights Walk plaque honoring the Say Their Names Memorial and Black Lives Matter initiatives in Ashland. It features a quote from Lorraine Hansberry, the playwright, that one cannot live with sighted eyes and feeling heart and not know or react to the miseries which afflict this world, which came from 1959. And it will be cast in bronze by Jack Langford with art of the plaque done by local artist Micah Blacklight. So it will truly be a very special thing, supported both by the Public Arts Advisory Committee and the Ashland Social Equity and Racial Justice Advisory Committee, and the City of Ashland, because the City of Ashland ultimately sponsored the creation of this plaque. So I invite everyone to participate. I have little invitations if anyone wants to pick one up and take it home or share it with their friends, because again, I promise it will be a very special and healing day for Ashland. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Anybody else have any updates or anything? Okay. Let's move on to the consent agenda. The approval of May 13th regular meeting minutes. Are there any additions or corrections?
Yeah, thanks, Chair Werner. Just one quick thing on page 1 under staff announcements. I think it was supposed to refer to a special meeting on May 27th instead of April 29th. And so just one change there.
Staff has that? Okay. Okay, any other additions or corrections? Would somebody like to make a motion as amended?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as amended.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the May 13th minutes as amended. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, adopted. Now we're moving on to public forum. Is there anybody in the audience who would like to speak to the planning commission on an item that is not on the agenda? Seeing none, we'll move, we'll move on to our type 2 public hearing. This is a type 2 public hearing. A type 2 public hearing is held before the planning commission, with the planning commission making a decision afterwards, and that decision is appealable to the city council. This hearing is on PA-T2-2025-00056, a request for a variance to the maximum allowed lot coverage of 20% to allow for an addition to the existing garage. The non-conforming lot coverage currently is 54%, or 11,946 square feet, and the applicant proposes to reduce coverage by 615 square feet. The site is at 120 Westwood Street. The applicant is Rogue Planning and Development Services. The property owner is Ian J. Crisp and Annie Francis Crisp, Revocable Living Trust. Comprehensive plan designation is low-density residential. Zoning is RR-.5. Map is 391E08BA, and tax lot 904. Before I open the public hearing, I'll ask commissioners if they've had any ex parte contact or if they've done a site visit. Commissioner Kincaron?
No ex parte and no site visit, but
Thank you.
awareness of the site.
Commissioner McCracken-Jan?
No ex parte, no site visit?
Commissioner Mar, sorry.
No ex parte, no site visit.
Commissioner Perkinson?
No ex parte, no site visit.
Commissioner Phillips?
No ex parte, no site visit.
And I have not had any ex parte, but I did do a site visit. I'm not aware of any challenges for bias or prejudgment or personal interest. I will now open the public hearing. Aaron, will you please make the staff presentation?
Good evening, Chair Verner, Planning Commission. Aaron Anderson, Senior Planner with the Community Development Department. As you mentioned, this is a application for a variance to lot coverage to allow a small addition to an existing garage. The property currently exceeds the allowed lot coverage. The zoning is RR.5, which requires a half-acre minimum and a 20% lot coverage maximum. This is the city map, and here is the location of the project along Westwood. This is a slightly more zoomed in of the neighborhood, showing the zoning. The subject property is highlighted there in blue. In terms of background, the lot was created in 1998 when the Placer Run subdivision Phase 1 was platted. Shortly after, there were building permits issued for the home and a garage with additional living space. Combined, those two were slightly over 7,100 square feet. 20% of the lot works out to 4,356, so simply the initial house and garage permits were far in excess of that. Then in 1999, May of 1999, there was a modification to the subdivision that addressed having a curved driveway that is typically not allowed. That obviously required additional paving, but the staff report was very thin and didn't provide details on or discuss lot coverage. In January of 2001, the C of O was issued for the home, and then in 2003, a pool permit was issued, which created additional impervious surfaces. This is a brief summary of the lot coverage as it currently is and what's proposed. The application proposes to remove approximately 950 hardscape, which is going to lessen the amount of lot coverage net. And again, the addition is only 322 square feet. In terms of the neighborhood, this is the entirety of the subdivision. And again, this is the assessor's map. In terms of the boundary of the subdivision, I want to go into a little bit of detail of how we got here. It includes all of this land out to here. This is the city limits in the UGB. And this is the portion that was platted as Phase 1 with this area. Well, we'll get there in just 1 second. This is the parent parcel when the street was put in originally. This was in 1994. Excluding right-of-way, there was 15.31 acres remaining. This is the plat from the Phase 1 of the subdivision, and you'll notice that it's not showing all of Lot 1. It extends far off the plat, and that was over 10 acres. And then when Phase 2 was platted, it left 2 very large lots. So again, here's the neighborhood, and you can see that most of these lots really are developed out to about the same, roughly the same lot coverage if you're just eyeballing it. And so in terms of how we got here, land division process was a little bit different in the late 90s. The staff reports were not as detailed as they are today, and there was a general understanding of looking at the subdivision in the aggregate. So again, this is the total 15.7 acres of the parent parcel of the subdivision. And just some quick back of the envelope math, if you exclude the right of way and then break out the 20% allowed lot coverage, it maths out to just slightly over 12,000 square feet. So we presume that that was effectively what was being done at the time when the permits were being reviewed and issued, but there's just simply not documentation backing up that speculation. This is the subject property, again from near map. And the garage that's being proposed to be added onto is right here. This is the property from street view. You can see it's set back a good way from the property. And again, this is the garage we're going to be talking about. Currently, it's a 3-car garage. They're proposing this following addition. And in terms of solar setbacks, they provided exhibit showing that the proposed addition is entirely within the existing shadow from the shade-producing height. Once again, I have this same table that was at the top of the presentation, just for review. Again, what is existing is estimated to be slightly less than 12,000 square feet. They're proposing to remove 950 square feet of hardscape, 949, so the actual lot coverage will be reduced. And this is an exhibit from the application materials showing the areas of pavement that they're proposing to remove to bring the lot coverage down. And so as the staff report concluded, if the Planning Commission can make findings that the approval criteria have been met and the request is reasonable, since the improvement in the non-conforming situation, as well as the planning history in the surrounding development. And I'm more than happy to take any questions.
Questions for Aaron?
I do, I just have to figure out how to formulate it. So this has nothing to do with whether I think it is appropriate or not. It's just a function question. It appears to me from looking at it that removal of the hammerhead would make, I guess, if you have a 4-car garage, it looks like it'd be really hard to turn around before you go out the driveway if they did that, if they removed that paving. And I guess there's no rules against having your driveway be difficult. But I question, so I guess, I'm not sure if this is the right time to do this. I might be deliberating already.
Maybe you're deliberating already. Although you can certainly ask him how.
What he thinks?
Yeah, if he has any suggestions on how they might get out of the driveway.
I think what's more up for me is if it's already over, if it was staff's suggestion or a way to sweeten the deal by taking out paving that's actually functional, if where they're planning on putting the addition is already, although not paved, really lot coverage anyway, what the heck? It's like, so I don't know where the intention to take stuff out is, but I know that you take stuff out and then you decide you need it again anyway, and so I wonder if it makes sense to even do that.
I don't believe it was a request from staff, but I wasn't the original planner on the application.
I believe it was a request from staff in recognizing that the permitted lot coverage from the building, the driveway, the garage, and the pool addition was all permitted, but subsequent to that, there was additional paving that was done without permits. And so as a non-conforming situation, staff did recommend at a pre-application level to look at opportunities to reduce the amount of lot coverage by removing areas that were added without
I
permit.
get that, but it seems to me that a lot of this happened through mistakes of previous planning department who are all good people. So I'm not trying to make anybody be responsible and guilty, but I don't think that the homeowner is either. And so I'm just suggesting that maybe it's not necessary, and that's.
Yeah, and it is within the planning commission's purview if you recommend to retain a portion of the proposed removal of impervious surface, and as such increase the total impervious surface with the addition of the 322, that they did apply for a variance. It was noticed as a variance, and obviously the applicant is here to address that and what their ultimate desire is.
I get, yeah, and I'll just leave it at, I think even Stephen would be good enough. Just don't make more. So however you get there is, yeah. So I'm done, sorry.
No, actually, I had a question with the new addition. It doesn't look to me like they were going to have any pavement between the garage door and the rest of the pavement. So I was questioning whether they're going to drive out of the new garage and bump over some dirt and then get to the pavement, or how that was going to work. So that was going to be my question as well.
Is that a question for me?
If you can answer it, go ahead.
Yeah, I would really think it more appropriate for the applicant to address that, because there's some indication that this is meant to be a shop. I'm not sure what the intent is there. You could have a roll-up door to a wood shop area that maybe doesn't necessarily need to be paved. They may be better off to address that.
Anybody
I
else
mean,
have any?
on the maps, it doesn't show it as being accessible from the driveway.
The new garage?
The extension to the garage.
It says garage on the application, but I think what's being said is that it's not a garage.
Except that there's a door there and,
Right.
okay, we'll get clarification later.
I have a quick question.
Sure.
Is the crescent in front of the house, is that a driveway, a walkway? I mean, it
I'm sorry,
should be
this?
obvious.
That's driveway,
Yeah, it's a driveway.
That's the
It's
driveway,
a
yes.
drive-through, okay.
yeah. Susan?
And can you say a little bit more, Aaron, about you mentioned that having a circular driveway required, I'll just say special approvals generically. Can you repeat that, please?
Typically, properties are only allowed to have one vehicle access point to the street with an eye to reducing pedestrian vehicle interfaces. The approval for the 1909 modification to the subdivision was not a very detailed report, but what it basically explained was that the concerns came out of the S-turn here on Westwood and sight distance with regards to backing out. And so they approved that for two different properties, one, the subject property, and the other one to the south of it. And it was pitched as basically a safety requirement in the approval.
Could you go back to your slide with the percentages? Yes, and so if we take out the 615 feet, what's the percentage of lot coverage and the impervious surface total?
Right now,
No, assuming we approve this with, as proposed, the less than,
as proposed, it would go from 54.8 to 50.49. So it would be a slight reduction in lot coverage, and roughly in line with what's allowed in R110. Oh, pardon me, R15. Thank you, Brendan.
And if you didn't remove any coverage at all, you'd be back up to the 54.8.
okay.
Actually, I think you'd be a little higher. If you, unless,
Well,
because
the driveway's on existing impervious.
Yeah,
Yeah, but it's not calculated as impervious, is
the
it?
area where the proposed garage addition is located is a compacted TG, and as such, we calculate that
Oh, you did
as
already.
impervious surface.
Okay, great.
Okay, so the numbers in yellow are with the subtraction from the hardscape?
Correct, that's
and
the
with
proposed state,
and
yes,
with the garage addition? Okay,
correct.
thank you.
Okay, so it's an addition to the garage, not an additional garage. That's the problem.
Yes,
Except that it looks like, when you look at the picture, it looks like an additional garage. Well, whatever. Yeah, doesn't matter.
It's a 322 square foot addition to the garage that has its own roll-up garage door. So effectively going from 3 bays to 4.
Okay. Thank you very much. And the applicant, would the applicant like to come forward and make a presentation?
Good evening, Commissioners. Amy Gunter, with Planning and Development Services. With me today are the property owners, Ian and Amy Chris. As stated by staff, the proposal is for a variance for lot coverage.
Now it is. Do you want me to do that over again?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Please.
Amy Gunter, Road Planning and Development Services. With me this evening are the property owners, Ian and Amy Crisp. Thank you, staff, for the comprehensive presentation. We believe that the application materials and the staff report summarize the situation and adequately address the criteria for the variance request, and we support the recommendations of the planning department staff. I don't have a lengthy slideshow because staff went through most of the details. The garage space that's being added is for project cars that are not really going anywhere. So the surface to get in and out of that wasn't really a concern. We do support the commissioner's discussions about maybe it's not that important to remove some of the area, and we'd like to look into it further if possible so that we could keep some of that back out area of that hammerhead turnaround that is located here. I colored it green because it was going to go away. But definitely open to that suggestion for this area, but there wasn't intended to be a driveway there. We do have some concerns regarding the proposed condition pertaining to the deed restriction. Primarily, the concern is that the issue of coverage being over is a situation that's happening throughout this little subdivision, and this isn't the only lot. Concerned about how that deed restriction language could impact future sales of this property. The homeowners just bought the property last year. They did a title search. Their realtor went to the city and looked into records. None of this information came up. So then when they went in to apply for a building permit, they were quite surprised by what has happened, because this went from just doing a garage addition to now a many thousands dollars, many months later type of project. And so there's concerns about how that deed restriction could have future impacts on this property. And so we would request that it be removed, or at a minimum, that the language of it not be finalized, and that we can work with staff and legal counsel on the exact terminology of what is in that deed restriction, so it doesn't have significant impacts on their future ability to sell their property. So I don't have, like I said, I don't have a lot of slides. All I focused primarily was the photos that are in your packet. And we believe that, as the record shows, that there was maybe mistakes, maybe not mistakes made that created this situation, and they're just trying to remedy it so that Mr. Crisp can have his project garage space. If there's any questions for me, I'd be glad to answer them.
Susan?
So were other alternatives to reducing the hardscaping looked at? For example, to me, just looking at the plan, the left side of the curved front, which I can't imagine using if I were driving into that house. So could you talk about that and why this particular space was chosen? As well, I understand the area around the patio and pool, but the hammerhead, and why not the circular driveway?
The property owners may need to step up to speak to it, but my understanding is it's like the functions of that driveway, it's a loop through. So any deliveries that happen, when guests come through, they loop through, and it's almost like a one-way driving system because of how the street is there with that curve to the south. I believe the property to the south is 130 Westwood, I'm not quite sure, but these two properties on that curve, if everyone's driving the speed limit, it's fine. It's when people aren't driving the speed limit coming around those corners. So we'd also talked about reducing. My suggestion at first was to shave down the width of the driveway, and why that doesn't really work, I'll get through to some of these later photos, is there is like printing that when the driveway was poured, there was like colored and scored concrete on the sides of it, and changing that has major ripple effects with how the driveway looks throughout the rest of the property. It looked like you cut off part of your arm, possibly. Just so that was my suggestion originally, was shave down the driveway, but then there's these colored strips along the side that weird things start to happen to. So these just seemed like the most logical and feasible locations to pull out substantial amounts of concrete that make this proposal more amiable to meeting the city's requirements.
The one might argue that the hardscaping that is decorative on the side of the driveway would be easy to lose as well.
Right. The issue is that all of this existed, and it appears to have existed with the original building permits of the property. So to now try to take it out 25 years later seems like quite a punishment to these property owners.
John?
Yeah, thank you for your presentation. So I just have a quick question. Aaron mentioned or spoke a little bit about the history of the subdivision and about the history of this particular home. Can you just comment, you said something about there's examples elsewhere within the subdivision of also them exceeding, and I don't want to put you on the spot, but if you have some concrete examples of that.
So when I believe I talked about it a little bit in the findings, but I didn't go into great detail. So I calculated each of the properties that to the north, to the south, the one directly across the street, you can see just visually looking at it, there's no way they're at 20%. The folks to the south as well. The only one in these houses that meet are the brand new house. I think it's like 900 square feet. It was just built on this lot that's off the screen. So I don't have the exact details of all of them, but I calculated each one was well over 20%.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anybody else have any questions?
Just a comment. And I'm going back to the removal of, in my mind, most of the hardscape that's being proposed to remove is going to, just looking at it from a site plan perspective, it's like, yeah, so we're going to put a big gap in my paving between my pool and my house. It's going to be a pain in the butt, and it's just going to end up wanting to be paved again. So although I really appreciate the intent, I don't think it's practical. Because, you know, we all know people will just go pave it again later, and even if you have a deed restriction, so then it comes out, it just doesn't make sense to enforce that way, I don't think. So that's just my comment. It's not a question.
I can tell you that Ms. Crisp agrees with you immensely back here. I don't know if she's violently shaking her head yes, but she agrees with you. So, thank you.
No, I don't want the cement, so I'm fine with it.
There you go.
In the backyard, which would help with the law.
There you go.
Oh, so you want to remove that?
I
paper?
do.
Oh, great. I'm not trying to stop you.
Okay. I misspoke. I'm glad she's back there. So Ms. Crisp agrees that some of that pavement should come out.
I have a comment, but maybe it's better for the discussion. So I'll wait now that I think about it.
Okay. Okay. Is there anybody else who would like to comment on this application? Okay. Come forward and introduce yourself.
I'm Ian, my wife Amy, where the property was. So we recently moved to Ashland.
Please turn on the mic and sit down and,
So we recently
Introduce
moved to
yourself.
Ashland 9 months ago from the Portland area. We've been about probably 32 years out there. And our grandson, our daughter, and son-in-law have settled on Beach Street. So we want to join them out here. I'm retired, been retired for a few years, and I'm mechanically inclined, and I like to fiddle around with old cars, right? So in our extended search for a home, we initially intended to build. We wanted to build our dream house here. We thought this was our opportunity, our final opportunity to do that. As I'm sure you're all aware, there are limited opportunities for buildable lots in Ashland. My son-in-law gave us a call and said, hey guys, we found a place that we think looks like you. So went and took a look, and first consideration was, wow, there's room here for one more bay. We can build the garage. We did all of our due diligence, right? And until we engaged with a builder to come and take a look at it, we had no idea that there would be these limitations that we would have to deal with. So here we are today, and with all due respect, first of all, thank you for your consideration. I try to boil it down and make it very simple, right? So at the end of the day, I think all we're really asking to do is increase the permeability of our lot. That's what we like to do. So building the garage and taking out the concrete, I think, is what the city, ideally in the direction the city would like us to go. So that's, I guess, the underpinning of our proposal. And also at our cost, of course. I feel that the condition of a deed restriction in this case is a bit unfair, given that the other handful of properties in our subdivision don't have one and have similar lot coverage type issues. So I feel we're being penalized for bringing the issue forward. If we weren't bringing this forward, we wouldn't even be having this dialogue. We're helping to mitigate the permeability issue at our own cost, and I just ask with all due respect that you reconsider that condition, assuming we get an approval. So, thank you, and any questions, I'm happy to.
anybody have any questions? No? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I will now go ahead and close the public hearing and close the public record. So we are into deliberations. Why is it 3:13? It's going backwards. Never mind. Yeah, okay. We only got, no time left. You want to make your comment now?
So I'm certainly empathetic to the buyers. I bought a house that had asbestos and lead paint, and somehow that escaped notice. That said, the argument, the argument, often we face discussions of how homes And we have the question of whether to enforce sidewalk regulations or not. And often the argument that's made to us is, well, no one else has a sidewalk yet, so why should we be the first ones? And I, can't help but draw an analogy between that and a subdivision that has a set of historical issues, but if we don't start now, when do we start? I applaud increasing the permeability of the lot overall as an intention of this, but at the same time, I have difficulty with that particular argument and would wonder if there's a way of doing the deed restriction that is not, overly punitive to this particular property or put it at a disadvantage, but at the same time, start to make sure that the next person doesn't come in and go back and do the same things over again because they've been done before, and they're done by their neighbors.
I would agree with you. I was going to suggest putting another sentence on that particular condition that would limit it to whatever percentage we deem is correct, 50.49 or 51% lot coverage in total on the property, so that, again, we don't get this back before us with somebody saying, but it didn't say, and we didn't know, and blah, 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 blah. Because that's the problem, that's the situation that we're in now, where things weren't done more lackadaisical in years past, and I don't want us to be in this same situation if this property ever comes before us again. Carrie?
Is there a way in the way that staff looks at properties when people come in to ask them about them, that those properties in that subdivision that we know are all over lot coverage can be flagged so the people that buy them can be told that they can't add to the lot coverage?
City staff doesn't engage with, I'd say, 99% of property owners buying and selling properties.
Understood.
Deed restrictions are the mechanisms that we use. For instance, if somebody, this is not the lot coverage issue, but gets us accessory building but not an accessory dwelling, we will record that a no kitchen agreement is a deed restriction, that prior to installation of a kitchen that they receive permit approval from the city.
So that still doesn't, I'm trying to look at the equality issue and also the fact that, like, I've worked for people before that, and I'm not dissing staff at all, but, they've come in and everything's great, there's no problems. And then I go and start doing improvements and suddenly they never had a C of O and,
Right.
That kind of stuff. Or they had permits that were never finalized.
Right.
So why doesn't, maybe this is the question, why doesn't the fact that the pool was never finalized, why doesn't that show up when somebody comes in and asks what's happening?
We do get requests for public record requests with regularity from realtors or prospective buyers asking for permit history, in which case we will do the research and provide that back. So that would show up if your client came in
And
asked for it. We don't preemptively do lot coverage calculations, building permit reviews for all 10,000 lots.
Understood.
And so that is not within our process, but we would respond to a realtor that requested information on permit approval, lot coverage, zoning, maximum building height, whatever questions they may have.
Okay, well, I want to go back to the fact that since we know there's a lot of problems in that neighborhood, it would be great to have some kind of little ding. If somebody came in to look at buying a property, they would know. That's all.
One of the things that was in the staff report, but you did not mention, Aaron, was the kitchen in the upstairs residence above the garage?
During that, the process of preparing the staff report, I communicated that back to the applicant. They've provided us a photo showing that there's no longer a range in that building, so it's just accessory guest space. I've spoken to the building department and haven't yet been able to confirm if or not we need to do an inspection to confirm that the natural gas was capped. But we did get a photo showing that it's no longer in there as it was seen on Zillow.
Okay, okay. So, in your opinion, do we need a condition that says if the applicants will obtain a building permit if a kitchen is put in?
I wouldn't think that would be necessary considering the deed restriction is currently on the property. Anyone who were to get a title report would see that deed restriction that was created.
Okay. And if they want to use it as an ADU?
They would simply need to apply for a building permit. That would require getting a new address, installing a separate electric meter, and paying the required SDCs. But turning it into an ADU would be a simple matter.
Okay. And you don't think we need a condition that spells that out?
Again, there's currently a deed restriction that's on the property that was memorialized at the time that it was built,
That says no ADU, no additional residence?
without getting the appropriate permits, correct?
Okay. Thank you. No? Okay.
I just have one comment. You know, in hearing the discussion about the value of adding a deed restriction, so I appreciate the analogy that Susan provided, and I also understand the request that Amy made on behalf of the client, which is, as I recall, was to give the applicant the opportunity to work with counsel to craft a deed restriction that would be fair to them. And my comment is, I think that's reasonable.
So to allow them to wordsmith.
Correct. Which could potentially create, I'll call it a win-win for lack of a better description.
Well, it also has the potential for causing not a win-win. Are you comfortable with that?
My recommendation would be for this body to articulate what component of a deed restriction you would like to be included, and then we could work with the applicant to ensure that the language that they provide and we review addresses your concern. If it is establishing a maximum coverage allowance for 54.9 or 8%, the current allowance as a maximum, if that's the direction of the commission, then we would incorporate that into the deed restriction. If it's a lesser amount in the direction of this body, we would suggest to them to work with us to incorporate that in. Ultimately, that deed restriction would, had it been in place before they purchased this property, they would have been aware that the removal of a commensurate amount of hardscape was necessary to add impervious surface to the property.
Okay. So do we want to go with the 54% that's there now, or?
I think we should go with what they're proposing they're going to have, which is 50.49 or something.
Yeah. Or rounding
Let's
it
call
up.
it 50.4. 50.5.
Which includes the removal of the hammerhead.
Yeah.
Okay, 50.5. I was going to be generous and go to 51, but okay.
Gets pretty squishy.
I don't want to be the guy out there measuring it. Okay, so would somebody like to make a motion? Somebody want to take a stab at this?
Is it a two-part motion, or is it just one motion? Is it a motion to approve the variance and then a separate motion to modify the deed restriction? Or is it just a single motion?
It's one motion, and you modify one of the conditions of approval as part of the motion. Go for it.
Come on, John. I'll second.
I think that somebody else should do it.
Russell likes to do it.
Yeah, he's great at it.
Okay, somebody's got to do it.
Come on, Russell.
John, I think it's your turn. All right, I'll make a motion to approve the application with the following conditions of approval. Number one, all proposals of the applicant shall be conditions of approval unless otherwise modified herein. Number two, a deed restriction be recorded to the property to memorialize this planning action and to limit the lot coverage as proposed to 50.5% for approval here. And number three, prior to the final approval of the project, the proposed hardscape to be removed has been confirmed by an inspection by city staff.
Good job.
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we approve the variance application before us with the three conditions of approval proposed by staff, with an amendment to the second condition to add limit of 50.5% hardscape on the property, noting that that is far and above what is allowed by current standards. All those in, is there any discussion on the motion? Who's gonna do the roll call?
I'll do it.
Okay.
Perkinson,
Aye.
McCracken Jen,
Aye.
and Karen,
Yes?
Mar,
Yes.
Phillips,
Yes.
Werner.
Yes. Okay, we have made a decision on this motion, and thank you very much. We are now going to move on to our next item on the agenda, which is to go to unfinished business and discuss the Transportation System Plan, TSP, Public Engagement Plan, and see where we get on that. Who's going to make the present? Aaron, are you making the presentation on this?
I can make the presentation. I wasn't going to present via PowerPoint.
Oh, okay.
I was just going to give you all some background. I think you're aware the Transportation System Plan is finally moving ahead. Something envisioned from that is incorporating a greater analysis and focus on the climate-friendly areas that have just been adopted. As we move ahead with the Transportation System Plan, the one piece that's not covered in the grant to fund the TSP is a public engagement process. So the city has proposed that the Planning Commission, in cooperation with Planning and Public Works staff and the Transportation Commission, would conduct that public engagement process. And your packet includes a public engagement plan based on a state template and some recently completed public engagement plans elsewhere. We've taken that to the Transportation Advisory Committee, and they have given us some feedback, which has been incorporated to include a number of potential stakeholders, including shipping industry, the disabled community, and various environmental activists and transportation activist groups in the valley. So really just kind of looking for your feedback and as we move to finalize that plan, moving ahead with the TSP process. And I think we expect to, now that we have the CFAs adopted, it's anticipated that we will be selecting and finalizing a consultant and moving ahead with the scope of work on that plan in short order. And the plan itself is probably going to take 18 months to 2 years to complete and adopt.
And we have the time for that? Is there a mandatory end when this thing should be adopted?
There is not.
Okay. I have one question on the regional and agency partners list. You've listed Ashland School District and Willow Wind, and I'm wondering why you've separated out Willow Wind.
I separated it out because it was specifically called out by Transportation Commission separate, but I mean, I think they are affiliated, so.
Yeah, it's at one of the elementary schools, so
Yeah.
it should be,
Yeah.
should not be listed.
Yeah, there is one distinction with Willow Wind is that it's the only Ashland School District property that's outside of our urban growth boundary. And so not typically involved in city processes, that property, but functioning on East Main, which is a major arterial. So, but you're right. We would reach out to the school district as to forming their representatives in the group.
Okay. Anybody have any comments on this? Russell?
Thanks, Chair Werner. Derek, just a quick question. As we go through the process of engagement, how will we measure the success or from who we're engaging with, which is the public?
I mean, I think it's a measure of going through the process and engaging hopefully with underserved populations and having a record of that. And then also how we've incorporated whatever feedback we get from those populations into the plan itself. And typically what's been done in the climate friendly area project, for instance, is a final engagement report that summarizes kind of the level of engagement that was achieved as well as the resultant impact on the plan development.
Okay, fantastic. And then so engagement would be, I guess, the public and then also all the stakeholders
Yeah.
as well. Okay, thanks, Derek.
Yep.
Susan?
Perhaps not totally surprisingly, I would like to suggest, or I'd like to ask whether there was consideration of adding the Public Arts Advisory Committee to the list of city bodies. A couple of reasons. One is that the PAC was asked specifically by the city manager to consider transportation routes as in placement of public art. The Iowa City Lit Walk actually happened because they were revamping their main thoroughfare through Iowa City and used that opportunity to put in their first set of plaques for the literary walk. So that was a way of funding that activity. And then thirdly, if you look at Bend, for example, it has done, in my view, a very stellar job of incorporating public art into improvements in the transportation system. And so really integrating the public art into changes in the transportation system in a way that's very impactful and meaningful, which kind of goes back to the city manager Kata's first point, I think, that they be thought of, in an integrated fashion. So that's my point of view on that.
Makes sense to me. Go for it.
Another quick question. When can we look forward to the joint Planning Commission Transportation Advisory Committee meeting?
So the Transportation System Plan project is largely ODOT funded, and ODOT is currently working with Public Works and a selected consultant in negotiating the final contract. As part of that scope of work, we would look at scheduling those meetings. So I don't have an answer for you as to when the joint meeting would be scheduled. Largely, I anticipate it would be in the kind of the launch of the project, and really it says months 7 to 9 of the plan. So the first would be a number of the advisory committee meetings and stakeholder interviews, and then coming to the joint committees, Joint Commission and Transportation Advisory Committee, probably in, I would say probably January or February, if this public engagement plan holds, once the consultant has an opportunity to review it and plug it into their work plan.
Thanks, Brandon. I hear you mention consultant. How is that process determined, evaluated, and selected?
So it is the Oregon Department, ODOT has provided the funding for it. However, they engaged the city of Ashland to develop a review committee, which included myself, Public Works Director, Mr. Severson, and a member of the Transportation Advisory Committee, a member of ODOT's development team, to review applications that were submitted. At this point, because the contract has not been executed, all members of that committee are prohibited from discussing the negotiations that are ongoing. But so in large part, it was informed by city evaluation of the applications received and the selection made by that selection committee, and then presented to ODOT, who is executing a contract.
Thanks, Brandon. And realizing that your lips are kind of sealed right now due to negotiations, do you expect, can you say whether you expect us to have somebody selected here soon or not?
Yes.
Great, thank you.
Thanks, Brandon. Sorry.
Oh,
may I?
go ahead.
Is the list of applicants in the public record?
It would be through a public records request through ODOT and through their contract manager. However, if the negotiations conclude in short order, we'd be happy to provide that information to the commission.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I think you've gotten our input. Let's go forth and talk to the public. Thank you. So that brings us to the open discussion part of the meeting. Anybody have anything to discuss? Okay, hearing none, is there a motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
A second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned. Less than an hour.
When does that?
Very good.